I came to N Street Village several years ago broken in all areas of my life. I am the product of Ruby and Raymond Miller, two former government workers, hardworking parents. I'm the youngest of 6 girls. I never, ever, ever wanted for anything in my life. I had no idea what it meant to go to bed hungry. I had no idea not to have the essentials of what I needed growing up. No idea, because I had everything I needed. Growing up, I was a victim of abuse. And so I internalized that abuse as if it was my fault. And that led me down to a path of alcohol and drugs. And that served as a catalyst to numb the pain. How I arrived at N Street was I was eavesdropping on a conversation 2 other ladies had. And they were not talking to me. I was just like, listening. And that's how I arrived at N Street, by listening to someone else's conversation. And so I arrived at N Street Village. At that point in my life, I just wanted to have a place to wash my hands, because my disease had reduced me from living to a house, an apartment, to an abandoned car in the snow. And so being on the streets, I had to become accustomed of living on the street. It's not that I didn't have the help of my family, but I just kept on going back and back and back until they had to step back. And I was in a sink or swim situation. And so by eavesdropping on that conversation, I came to N Street Village broken. But I was greeted with such compassion. I was greeted with dignity and respect. And I was like, wow, because my self-worth had just diminished. But slowly, I was able to, my morale, my self-worth started to climb. And of course, I had in my head, after having 90 days, 120 days under my belt of recovery, I began to, I said, I can take the wheel back, and I can get back in the driver's seat. And I did that 2 times. And by doing that, I crashed. I crashed into a brick wall. So on my 3rd time around, I came back to N Street, and I was greeted with that same compassion. But they told me, they said, Emily, you've been here 3 times now. What are you going to do different? And what I was able to say is that I finally realized that recovery was about my life. I listened to that phrase over and over and over again through the years, but I never really heard it. And that time, I heard it with my heart. And my life was on the line, because I was associating with people that did not have my best interest, I remember one day someone wanted me to do something that I really, really didn't want to do. And I had the audacity to tell them no. And they put me out. They put me out. And I knew at that point that if I went back to that surrounding, that I was going to die. I knew that. And so I went back to N Street. Schroeder and Evelyn and so many other staff members let me come back in. And they said, Emily, you got to do something different this time. And I did. I did something different. I no longer was walking around dressed up in heels and all of that. What I did was I started wearing T-shirts and shorts and tennis shoes, just so I can just grab a hold of my life. I did that. I remember one day while I was at N Street Village, I had a terrible toothache, and I wasn't working. And they introduced me to this dentist that took care of my aching tooth and didn't charge me a dime. They introduced me to what I call, in my opinion, the best therapist in the world, Philip Conklin, whom I still see to this day. I am a family support worker at Far Southeast Family Strengthening Collaborative. And I am honored to serve. I have 15 families on my caseload, and these families have transitioned from DC General, Days Inn, and other homeless facilities. And I am able to help them. But what I'm able to do is to draw back on the skills that I was given at N Street Village. I'm able to give back what was so freely given of me. I am a student at Trinity Washington University. You know, perseverance is one of the things I learned at N Street. And so right now I have run out of financial aid. The classes that I have 12 more classes, and I'll have my degree in human relations. So I pay for that out of my pocket because I am this close to obtaining my degree. You know, financial aid, they don't care if I get my degree, but I do, you know. And, and so this past semester, I received an A in statistics. Well, let me tell you about that class. Woo-wee. That class brought me to my knees. But what I was able to do, I was able to draw back on the skills that I learned at N Street. And they just say, take your time. Don't look at the whole picture. Just stay focused on one thing at a time. Because if I look at all the things that I have to do, I'll get overwhelmed and nothing will get done. So I just stay focused. And I was able to attend different study groups. I practically lived in the library, and it was very important to me to pass that class. And when my professor told me I had an A, well, you could have knocked me over with a feather. But I am so happy that N Street opened up doors that I never thought were possible. You know, they taught me how to have a plan, never leave home without a plan. Until this day, I never leave home without a plan. I go from point A to point B. They told me how to budget, and in budgeting, I have a car, and I always stay 30 days ahead in my car payment. So I just want to thank N Street for saving my life. I really do. And thank you.